Alright, good afternoon. We're going to continue our Guild Wars 2 personal story playthrough here on Three Swords Gaming. We're currently in Secrets of the Obscure, and we are ready to, quote, gather with our allies outside the cave to the Cosmic Observatory. What is that actually about? So, we've met this group of wizards, the Wizards Court, and we're helping them in their battle against these demons called the Kryptis. And we're doing this in order to protect Tyria, because of course they're a threat to Tyria, and also because we kind of got pulled into it through a rift, whether we kind of wanted it or not. So we're in this thing, and so we're going to help them out. We got Frode down here, and Maban, who's a Mersat, and then there's Ueno, and Zoja, both of whom are Asura, and of course Zoja we know from like core Guild Wars 2 stories. So we're going to join them right now. We're going to go down and talk to them. And because there are other members of the Wizards Court that are currently not available to us, or currently like we haven't met yet, because they are possessed by these demons, and thus not able to contribute, right? So this is a threat that the demons represent. The threat of possessing
I only
people.
got a glimpse before she moved farther into the cave, but, not good.
We shouldn't overwhelm her. I'd recommend that Zoja and the commander move ahead without us.
What are you going to do?
Yuno and I will guard the entrance. As soon as Dagda moves, every Kryptis nearby will want to join the fray.
Wizard magic is delectable to the Kryptis. Every well of power they hold is a feast to be devoured.
Right, so we better get moving. Commander, with me.
Yeah, let's go.
What, nervous?
Not used to taking orders.
A lot has changed.
Yeah, so that is likable. That is likable that the commander now has to take orders, and I wish they would stick with that a little bit more. I'm tired of being like the end-all be-all for the defense of Tyria, and like the whole world revolves around the commander. Instead, how about the commander is part of a group and not necessarily in charge of that group? And so we get that a little bit with the Wizard's Court. Maybe not quite as much as I would like, but we get it some at least. So this wizard that we're pursuing is someone that we've not met yet, and we got some surprises and new stuff.
Anything I need to know about Dagda?
She's the wizard of the Celestial. Specializes in power drawn from the cosmos. A Jotun. Packs one hell of a punch, too. Any Kryptis that took her down is probably one we should be afraid of.
A Jotun wizard?
They were among the most magical races in Tyria.
Right, but
Yeah, they're not anymore. But Dagda is 1,000 years old. More. She's seen a lot.
1,000 years old?
At least, you've got a lot to learn about the wizards.
We do, and this is one of the things I was just about to say, like one of the really interesting things that we have not seen thus far in Guild Wars 2. We've met Jotun before in Guild Wars 2, but they were not particularly intelligent, right? And if you played through the Norn personal story, you do learn that the Jotun were once very different and were once kind of one of like the preeminent races in Tyria, but lost that through kind of, neglecting their responsibilities as a race of power, right? So they were a great power, and they neglected that, and they lost that privilege, so to speak. And they are no longer the formidable intellectual force that they once were. They're actually like wretchedly stupid now. But that was always a very intriguing thing. Also, one of the Ra paths, I believe, also focuses on that. It's one of the really interesting things that's worth kind of diving into when you talk about Guild Wars 2 lore. And it's something that had been neglected throughout the entirety of Guild Wars 2, outside of one story instance or one little arc in the Norn personal story, and then that one path of Ra. So finally, we're getting a bit more of that. And in theory, we're about to meet a Jotun who is not fallen, so to speak.
Yeah, I do. Alchemy. They're already swarming.
Alchemy. That's like the Asura equivalent of saying gods, right? Because essentially that they, versus being kind of deistic in nature, they're more, I would say humanist, but not human because it's Asura, but like, so their way of making sense of the cosmos is through the eternal alchemy, right? Uh-oh.
Zosha, help me!
Siri, is that you?
Kill me!
Alright. So as far as I know, this is not a character that we've seen before at any point during our story. So unfortunately, they're kind of introduced in this, having already being in this state of possession. They're in a state of possession, essentially.
Pounded into dust. I'll break you down. Feel the fury.
May the stars cradle you.
She was a friend?
Found family. They'll keep coming until Dagda is stable. Let's move.
Alrighty. Well, yep, let's move then. This is an achievement we're not going to work on right now, but there's an achievement here associated with reading all the notes while you pass through this instance. I've yet to do it on my main account as well because it's such new content. But I do need to get around to doing that here in the near future because that's low-hanging fruit, right? And I have a hunch there's some lore stashed in there as well.
I can feel her, and you lead.
So what's up with that? Where Zoe just like, yeah, that's definitely Dagda, and things are happening, and you go ahead of me, and I don't want to talk about it. Not helpful, Zoja, actually.
She's just ahead.
The air is particularly dense in here. Which one of you latched on to the wizard's souls?
Zosha, what are you doing? You brought the Harbinger to kill me?
They're here to help. They're a friend.
They're here to end me, as they've ended so many others.
I'll see if I can cast a barrier to keep her trapped. Don't want to lose her again.
So we have reference to the fact that in general we've, killed a bunch of stuff, and that's probably not good. Whether it's the dragons or Balthazar or Joko or whatever else, like, not all these things had beneficial end states. And I've talked plenty about that before, how the studio seems keen to punish the player for their decisions in that regard, something that I don't agree with. I don't think that's packaged well. This is not quite so egregious, though. Like, it does make sense for a character under these circumstances, kind of make reference to that, for that to be a thing that comes into play here.
So many voices!
Commander, don't let them overwhelm you.
Well, I'll do my best, Zoja. Thanks.
We heal as one.
I like that attack. That's, as far as I know, unless that appears in a raid somewhere that I just haven't played, because I don't raid. That's a new mechanic for me, and I certainly don't mind it. It's interesting, at least. I don't know that it's like the most challenging mechanic they've introduced, but it doesn't need to be for it to be engaging, right? And I think that's an important thing to understand when we talk about that kind of stuff. Things do not have to be super hard to be interesting. Oop, but we don't want to be standing in the middle of it.
Doesn't it? I'll break you down. We heal as one. You sick?
So Dagda does seem to have like a giant health pool. I always feel like this goes slow. I'm probably, now with the new release and with some of the other stuff available out there, not set up on like anywhere near the best DPS build, and also not a great player. So like not using a specific rotation certainly factors to consider there, but she does seem to have a rather substantive HP pool as well.
Time to do some real damage.
I don't know any of these faces.
Yeah, interesting comment there. I don't know any of these faces. Well, remember, it was the wizards who thought it was a good idea to bring the commander on this part of the mission, even though Dagda does not know the commander at all. That is something that kind of struck me as like a touch odd. Like, why was the commander a good choice for like engaging with Dagda? Aside from the fact, the one thing being that that means that the player gets to participate in the fight, which of course is desirable. But otherwise, why was the commander a good choice for this? I don't know.
That's not my name. Don't call me that.
Almost conquered Earth's lands. Keep pushing.
I wonder what the name that she was hearing was. Could it be Vonda? Is that what this is in reference to? Because we hear the mystery voice, whom we will gain more fidelity on later, calling this Vonda's hive. Presumably whatever demonic force is engaged specifically with Dagda here is Vonda. So not sure if that's the case or not. I mean, it's as good a speculation as I have at the moment.
Time to do some real damage.
I don't know that you necessarily have to use the special action key twice, like both those, but it also isn't going to hurt you to do so. And since I don't know, every time I've done this, which is like 4 times I think thus far, I have done it twice. Oop, got a little close to that one.
I can imagine the sound of waves crashing against the shore. My thoughts are my own again.
You okay? No missing limbs?
An ache in my neck, but I'm fine, little one. This is the commander? Well, thank you for refraining from killing me. I'm sure you resisting that urge was a challenge.
What? I don't understand. I helped you.
Maban brought them here. We're on the same side.
Maban is too trusting.
Maybe you should check in on Frode and Yuno. Make sure they didn't get ambushed.
Understood.
Yeah, so again, why was the commander, whom Dagda doesn't know, sent in to be one of the 2 people to interact with her and pull her out of this? Real good question, since, not a known quantity here. So Dagda, yes, one of the Jotun, which is like super interesting, and thus her unique appearance, which I assume they had to create specifically because we've never seen a female Jotun, and we've never seen a Jotun that's not like super dumbed down and angry and just trying to attack us. They're just another creature that we fight anywhere else in Guild Wars 2. So I assume that they had to create her appearance specifically for this expansion, and it looks like they looked heavily to Shrek for inspiration. Certainly, I'm not the first person to observe that. I think that's the general impression. It's the impression that my kid had as well when seeing Dagda here, and looks quite silly, quite frankly. But that's fine. Like, whatever. The Jotun thing is certainly very interesting. I do like that pretty much immediately she's making certain observations about the commander, whereas in the past, or at other times, I'm kind of opposed, like the the player character being punished for the decisions that Arena had to make. It's consistent with the character, like it's consistent with the circumstances that some of these folks would have a negative view of the commander, given that the commander has done. So I'm more forgiving of it here than maybe in other places. Although I don't find Dagda to be like the best written character in the expansion, I do find it interesting. A couple other notes here. So she is a celestial wizard, and if you go way back, if we pull our dialogue box up here, we go way back to like the start of this instance, where Zoja explains it. Here it is. She's a wizard of the celestial, specializes in power drawn from the cosmos, a Jotun. And so I like that they reach back to a weapon set that is actually from, because if I'm not mistaken, this is like the astral weapon set from the first chapter of season 4. But an appropriate weapon for her to have if celestial magic is her thing. And they did try to like give each of the wizards their own flavor and like specific forms of magic and stuff, so that's pretty cool. Also interesting, as she came out of her
Even if Ori eventually succumbed to the void, the commander would make the right decision, as Glynn projected Kalkatoric.
It wasn't that simple. And those with good intentions make ignorant decisions every day.
so maybe Dagda's opposed to our relationship with Irene.
This later, okay?
I kind of don't want to get to them yet. So a little bit more interesting dialogue there, in terms of Dagda and Zoja, and Dagda's distrust with us. When she came out of her possession, she referred to something that's seemingly like unrelated to anything. What is it she said? Like, I can see waves on the coast. I can imagine the sound of waves crashing against the shore. So that's something that they tie to like possession and being freed from possession throughout this expansion, is the idea that like, I don't want to say happy thoughts, but like something that anchors you to who you are and your reality, and like the things that are valuable to you are critical to emerging from the state of possession. So that's what that is reference to. It's not that she's just mumbling about nothing. Like she's gaining her anchor to her own sense of identity there. And then she follows by saying, "My thoughts are my own" again. Not a fan of that, just because the voice whispering in our head, which we did get during this instance as well, already reminds us of Icebrood Saga and Jormag. And now we're reminded of the Kodan who use that exact phrase to talk about Jormag controlling people. Now, there's no way that was like a coincidence or a mistake on ArenaNet's part. It's just a parallel that I wish they hadn't drawn. And I don't know if they're going to go further with that, if we're going to see more about like Jormag utilizing the same methodology as the Kryptis or something like that. I really hope not, because I don't know that the story will benefit from that. Which when you use in like sentences and stuff, like that name is less charming. Frode, what's up, guys?
Look like you've seen a ghost.
I saw a Jotun.
Or 10.
How's she faring?
Zoja's with her now. A little beat up, but managing. If I'm gonna be honest, we didn't have the warmest of introductions.
Unsurprising. Dagda is,
A mother to us all.
and fiercely protective of her brood. We'll get Dagda somewhere safe to recuperate until we can get back into the tower. We'll meet you at the Beacon of Ages. Catch your breath, and don't take it too hard. She'll see you.
So in a weird little way, and again, I really want to stress, I think this is like some of the better storytelling that ArenaNet's done. It does bother me that Frode does not seem to like ever make any reference to or seem to care that much about the fact that his daughter was killed when we got pulled into the rift, and like if he doesn't want to hold it against us, like if he's very like kind of circumspect about all of it, like that's fine, but like for it never to be a thing again bothers me. And I don't know that it's terribly consistent with I don't think we have anything that indicates that Norn just don't care about their kids. I've never seen that. That's been suggested of the Char, I think erroneously, but I don't recall it ever being suggested of the Norn outside of the fact that Air is just a bad mother. But like as part of the Norn culture, I don't recall that being a thing.
That's good.
And you're still here. Am I possessed?
No, you are not.
Then who are you?
Peter.
Yeah, we get a name.
And what do you want, Patha? Now you choose silence.
Alright, so there is an achievement, since we're right here.
Us too. Got Kraut to thank for that one. Tried to keep the sky scale fiasco under wraps, but the Dragonfall infestation was far too advanced. Never mind that though. Given what we're dealing with here, they're critical for navigation. Try climbing that mess.
Great, thanks, Rift Hunter Warrior guy. So I really just wanted to stop here for this shiny blue ball, which I think is a good like graphical thing. Like it's aesthetically pleasing. It's cool. I don't think there's meant to be any relationship between like the glowy orb things that we see here and glowy orb things that we've seen elsewhere in the game. So I'm not trying to draw that comparison. Simply mentioning that there is an achievement which will get you a mastery point to come from this spot. In fact, if we stand up here, like we can get it started. There it is. There and then the second half of the achievement is back again, where you go from here all the way up to the entrance of the Wizard's Tower up here, like basically to the door. There's a blue orb by the door as well. And that'll give you one half of the achievement, and then making it back will give you the second half of the achievement, and there are time constraints to do so. But it's actually like not terribly difficult. You can kind of go up like this, and then over to here, and then up like this, over to here, and then up right over, like right here. These little islands will get you up, and you just scoot right up here, and the entrance like right there. And then coming back is like, how can you mess that up, right? Like it's all you gotta do is get back here in like 10 minutes. So if you have the updraft mastery, getting the achievement there is doable in like 5 minutes, never mind 10. And coming back here only takes a couple minutes. Very easy achievement, very easy mastery point. Once you have updrafts, if you don't have updrafts, it might take you closer to 10, but it should still be easily doable. We're not going to do it right this second, but just for reference, easy mastery point if you're looking for one. So we're back in the infirmary. Instead of getting a checkup ourselves, we're going to check up on Dagda and make sure that she doesn't have any long-term, like we don't have Gulf War syndrome or something from possession, I guess. How did your VA appointment go, Dagda?
I see you're on your feet.
That I am.
I think we're ready for some proper introductions. Dagda Commander, Commander Dagda. She helped Mabon heal me when I first got here. You should have seen me. I was a mess.
Dagda?
Commander, I apologize for my hostility at our first meeting.
I understand.
You did not deserve my ire, but I maintain my caution. We don't know you.
I was pulled into that rift. I'm happy to help Zoja, to help you. But this was not my choice.
Nor was it mine.
Okay, we're still feeling grumpy. Let's not get distracted from the end goal here, to stop the Kryptis. And, well, we need all the help we can get.
This is true.
Frode was looking for you, Commander. Why don't you track him down?
Yeah, we need all the help we can get. And Dagda says true, but that also is inconsistent with what we've been told in terms of Isgaron's wishes. Now, I assume they're making an exception for us, and I don't have a problem with that exception. It makes sense in that we've already been exposed to everything happening here.
Does what make me angry?
The fact that everyone doesn't immediately bathe in your excellence.
They don't know me. Neither do you.
But I'm starting to. And I don't think you liked that very much.
So I like half of that, right? The half that I don't like is for a really stupid reason. Let's move the dialogue box up here again. Does it make you angry? Does what make me angry? Okay, this kills me. The fact that everyone doesn't immediately bathe in your excellence. Please fix that sentence. For the love of God, please fix that sentence. It is structured improperly. I am not a grammar Nazi, but this is just a terrible, terrible sentence. The fact that everyone, subject is everyone, doesn't immediately bathe in your excellence. The implication here that every single person we meet does not immediately bathe in our excellence. And that's not what it is meant to communicate. What it's meant to communicate is there are people who do not immediately bathe in your excellence. Not everyone immediately bathes in your excellence. There are other ways of phrasing this to where it works. Now, is it a big deal that one line in the game is like kind of jacked up? No, but considering all the problems they have with dialogue and narrative, to not even be able to form a sentence properly, like really reinforces the fact that they have sixth graders working on the story. Like just write your sentences properly. Now, overall, I like that Patha is saying this, because I don't like the commander being like the end all be all for the story, right? So the general gist of this is fine, but like write it properly.
Concerned with Lear's, pardon, Urchik, but Lear's stuffiness. Ladium agrees with Grit.
Dagda's doing better. If I was still a shaman, I'd owe you a blessing.
Oh, I saw. Still less than thrilled to see me.
Dagda's incredibly protective of the Astral Ward. Like I said, she'll come around. Eventually.
This is the commander. Oh, Urchik is at your service. Skrit is a big fan of your work. Big fan.
This is Urchik and Gladium, two of my scouts. I've currently tasked them with tracking Lear.
Both of them.
We know that the facet of emotion is working with Maban to break down the tower's defenses. But his other half is...
not counted for. Glade has an ominous feeling.
As do I. But there are still Kryptis feeding on the fractals and their inhabitants. If we don't help them, we treat them no better than Dolyaks. Commander, frankly, I could use your help in the field. The Rift Hunters and my scouts have their hands full.
I'll check in with Rion, see what the hunters need.
All right, so yeah, we're about to go do some more riffs. Which, all right, they inserted it into the story once. That's fine. That's not inconsistent with the way ArenaNet designs content, and they do want to like sell everybody on this system of riffs. Why are we immediately after one instance going to do more riffs? Do they want me to believe in the system that bad? Because it's a bad system, and they're not going to convince me by doing more of them just to get through the story. Really, really unfortunate. So we got some new characters here. We got Gladium and Richik. So kind of fun that they added a Skrit. I don't know, like lore-wise, that it makes a ton of sense for an individual Skrit since they their intelligence is amplified by the presence of more Skrits. So, you know, if the Astral Ward really... either this Skrit is so far ahead of its peers, like intellectually, we got like the Oppenheimer Skrit here, or maybe they should have had like a whole hive of Skrit working like collectively, and they like harness that amplifying power of having multiple Skrit in one place. But we don't, you know, okay, all that is like, you know, hard adherence to the lore. It's fun to have a Skrit here. I'm on board. That's cool. And then Gladium. So Gladium is actually, for me, like one of the more interesting characters because of what they did. They created a character that doesn't speak. And so these two are a team. They function together. Richik speaks on behalf of Gladium. In fact, if we talk to Richik, I believe Richik explains it.
Urchik and Gladium are very honored to work alongside the esteemed Pact Commander.
The title might be a little dated, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Oh, Urchik could write ballads of your glory. Truly. Gladium, too. Urchik presents Gladium. She is my oldest companion. Urchik can read her movements. Gladium cannot speak or hear Skrit very well, for that matter. The legions were not kind to her. But Gladium is as strong and intelligent as the commander.
It's good to meet you both.
As Urchik and Gladium are glad to meet you.
Okay, I actually find that really interesting, right? So this is a fun, weird thing. It also shouldn't escape our notice that it's a cat and a mouse. Like that should also be like a, I mean, that's a thing. That's like kind of classic ArenaNet sense of humor right there. But they are a fun little combo here, and we're gonna get some more of them as we proceed through the story. But I like Gladium in the way that she's packaged, where she suffers these maladies as a result of the way the legions treated her, right? So we've always had the Char culture as being like a certain thing, and they're like very warlike and militaristic, and their society is structured in a military fashion, and all these things are fine, but like we never really, aside from some of the Flame Legion stuff, get like a really strong, a little bit in Icebrood Saga, which is notably the other really good story they have. So interesting that they only address these kind of things in like the good story. But we don't get a lot of suggestions or a lot of points in the story where we examine like the dark side of that culture and what that could potentially mean. What does it mean to be an outsider? What does it mean to be a Gladium in that culture? Rox is terrified of being a Gladium, but why? We're never told why Rox is so scared of that, what that means for her. Gladium finally delivers on that and shows us the consequences of being a Gladium, through her suffering and what the legions did to her. Really like that about Gladium. One of my favorite characters, and she never has a line. It's almost like ArenaNet tripped and fell right into success there, when it comes to like demonstrating that you don't need stupid narrative or stupid dialogue to make an interesting character.
You've returned. I'm sure I speak for all the hunters when I say job well done.
Thanks.
I had a lot of help from Zoja, but thank you. Frode made it sound like things might be urgent.
Dagda may be back on our side, but the Kryptis have stepped up their efforts. Let me show you.
All right, so like I said a minute ago, we're gonna go back to the rifts. Sure, show me the rifts. And so here we get options for where we can hunt rifts and where there are achievements associated with that. And these should, like your weekly rift hunting, if you're pursuing legendary armor, weekly rift hunting should be something that you're all about. If you're gonna do rifts anyway, do these ones. And the reason is because without greater effort, without like crafting things and so forth, you're going to be doing tier 1 rifts. So you put forth the effort to do tier 2 and tier 3 rifts. I mean, go bananas. But it's costly and a pain. These extraction rewards from the weeklies are going to give you some of the rewards for tier 2 and tier 3 rifts. So knowing how far out, we're 6 months out from the introduction of legendary armor, I doubt doing all the weekly rifts is going to be enough to get you what you want in terms of legendary armor, but it's going to cut down on the nonsense that you have to engage in. Make the rifts that you have to do weekly rifts, right? That would be my recommendation if you're like really concerned about legendary armor and you want to kind of maximize your value for the rifts that you hunt. Having said that, we're not going to do that because...
Do you expect me to trust you right away, Patha?
Would that be so bad?
If I'm about to rip off my own flesh and turn into a Kryptis, then yes.
The wizards are reactive creatures. They scare easily. Tell them, and it could end badly for both of us. I'd keep me under your hat for now. Get to know me a little before doing anything severe. Just watch out for nosebleeds. That might be a bad sign.
I do kind of get a kick out of that last little piece of dialogue there. All right, so why am I coming up here? Just get started on our rifts. It's nice to be at a little bit higher point and a little more central to the map. Hopefully that'll mean less running around when we go to actually find our rifts. And I have generally followed the route. If you're going to continue for that achievement, we'd kind of come over here and go up that way and work towards, because we got to get all the way up here, right? Again, not that hard though. If you're bound and determined to get a master point, it's a great way to go. I'm bound and determined to continue to move the story, which means I have to do some stupid ass riffs. Whoops. Well, that was a blunder. Wrong button. I'm afraid I don't have time for your giant saurians. Oh, is this it? No, that's an event. I think we missed that one. This is definitely a different one. We missed one, and now we're gonna try. We can see this one though. Man, that's a bad feeling. Although part of it was pretty slow on that one. But we're not late for this one, so we'll get this one. And the interesting thing is, like, feeling the need to like go flying across the map and feeling like I'm in competition with the players who are already working on this thing is kind of inconsistent with like generally what ArenaNet tries to do with the game. And that's one of the nice things about Guild Wars 2, right? Is you don't generally feel like most gameplay is collaborative, not competitive, unless you specifically choose a competitive game mode. And yet somehow they made, they managed to make like one of their core systems for this expansion feel very competitive in open world PvP or PvE against other players just to try and get the rewards that you want. And I don't know. I feel like that should have been predictable. I definitely feel like during testing it would have been identified. I guess it's something they were willing to accept. I have to assume that they were willing to accept it because the idea that they were unable to identify that during testing or that they didn't test seems like crazy to me, right? Surely that is not the case. So I would assume that they were just willing to accept that.
I'll break you down. That was impressive.
Oh, why did that happen? Huh.
Reap the whirlwind.
Commander? Can you hear me? Squid hopes this works.
Urchin, is that you?
Yes. Good. Very good. Urchik isn't very familiar with modern technology. Thank the magnificent shiny that Miss Yuna was able to connect your device to our astral frequency. Gladium and I are still tracking Lear, but we will contact you as soon as we've located him.
Alright, so sometimes when we need to perform a certain thing during the story, to give the impression of progress or give a feeling of progress, whatever it is that we're, while we're doing rifts, they're making progress somewhere else, so we'll get like those little updates, right? And that's essentially what's happening there. But at least it's a relatively likable character like Richik and not, Imagine if Gladium had called us, right? Would have been like a very weird call. Probably would have felt like a prank call. Would have been like, hello? 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 So, yeah. Good thing Richard called us, I guess.
Feel the fury. They'll have to hit much harder. I'll break you down.
try, old friend.
Until I'm rejoined, I don't really think I'm going to be able to control the forge well enough.
I'm afraid we're running out of both time and options.
Replenish.
You have to try.
You always manage to talk me into these things. Fine. Come to the forge and we'll lay out the plan.
We could use your help as well, Commander.
The facet of emotion who Urchik likes to call Goodweir doesn't have a good sense of where his other half is. Once we've accounted for both, the commander can assist Urchik and Gladium in sealing him back together.
So interestingly,
What is out there? We need to get these sky scales across the desert. It could use some extra hands.
the meta event's happening right now, or is about to happen. Should be happening shortly. And there does come a point in this story when you are given a choice between grinding out a bunch of like events and stuff or doing the meta event. I would much rather just do the meta event because it's going to be faster for us. And in fact, if we have to just do a bunch of events, then I'll probably just cut those from like the video itself. But if we don't get these stupid rifts quickly, then that won't be an option that's on the table for us. Because we'll end up having to wait, or I'll end up having to like do it tomorrow.
I'll break you down. Wither. Feel the fury. They'll have to hit much harder.
I think what ArenaNet is 100% counting on when it comes to the rifts, and I think they're accurately counting on it. Like I do think it's going to happen. How it will manifest is difficult to predict, and when it will manifest is difficult to predict, because they were 100% counting on it for bounties too, and it didn't necessarily manifest with bounties to the degree that I think they were expecting. So that's kind of an interesting thing. They're expecting like rift trains to very much be a thing. I think that's pretty clear in their design scheme for rifts that they don't. It's not that they don't want people soloing them, but I think they expect for
Clear the air.
the most productive means for players to get the rifts they need will be through trains, not through like solo pursuit of rifts. Oh, that's why I was getting my ass whooped. This guy's a elite. I didn't even notice. And then I really did get my ass whooped. Did my relic trigger from the use of my down skill? I think it did. Which I guess would make sense. Its cooldown meets the criteria for... But does that mean it counts as a weapon skill? Because Relic of the Firework requires a weapon skill for it to trigger properly, right? The only reason I chose it is because Hammer does have the number 5 skill is a 20-second cooldown. So it's just enough to trigger Relic of the Firework. I don't use Relic of the Firework on Reaper because of the cooldowns on Reaper. I use Thief instead. Not that I'm an expert on build crafting by any stretch of imagination. I can't think of a worse person to ask for about builds than me. But for what it's worth, I wouldn't use Firework on Reaper.
The sooner we get this essence, the sooner I can get back to fighting the Kryptis. Somewhere cooler, ideally. There's no shortage of despair around here, that's for sure. So get to work.
The
Alright, yeah, the meta event's advancing, but it's not in the final phase yet. Unfortunately, we're going to need one more rift. This one is not going to finish this green bar for us, I'm pretty confident.
Steady. Breathe. Breathe.
Who was that?
The Midnight King.
Epark?
Brave of you to say that so loudly. He hunts, though not for you yet.
Alright, so we get some more dialogue from Patha, because we now know her name. And we got some dialogue from Epark, I guess. On my first couple playthroughs, it was unclear to me if that was Epark or Sarah. Sounds like it's Epark, so he would be like presumably the big baddie for this expansion, though we don't know that yet because we haven't made it that far in the expansion. But it certainly seems to be the case. He is the king of the Kryptis, so I guess that would, be a thing. Alright, we might actually be able... I don't remember if there's dialogue in between this and needing to do the meta event or not. Or there might even be an instance, for all I know. I don't remember, so... we'll find out. But we should be done with our rifts here in just a minute. And that is nice. You know, it is worth noting, maybe this kind of content just isn't my thing. I also did not get into bounties, and quite frankly, I don't see a notable difference between these and bounties. Not really. I find them to be fundamentally the same. I realize that the means of triggering them and identifying them and stuff is different. But at the end of the day, I don't, and in particular in terms of what ArenaNet was expecting out of this versus bounties, I don't particularly see a difference. So I got a little squeaky there for a minute. I need my drink. Where's my drink? Alright, notable improvement.
I feel good. Feel the fury.
Good news, Commander. Gladium caught Lear's trail.
That is good news.
Well, bad Lear's trail. Meet Skrit at the Beacon of Ages, and we'll build a plan.
We'll see. We'll see if we're going to be able to get to that meta event in time or not. Alright. We're going to have to hustle.
The worst is yet to come. Forging the key is going to pull a lot from you. There are dangers that come with that.
I've survived worse. It's gotta be done, Maban. So we might as well get to it.
Commander, just in time for Urchik's battle plan. Maban and Goodlear are working to unlock the Wizard's Tower. Maban has requested the Commander's assistance. Once Maban and Goodlear have forged a key, we can access the Wizard's Tower. Right, Glade. That's where we think Bad Lear is hiding. How he got in, Skrit does not know.
You know and I will hold the line here in the interim, but we'll join you when it's time to recapture the tower.
How does that sound to you, Commander?
Sounds good.
I
Sounds like we're
still
running out of
have a
time.
lot to learn about, well, all of this. But I'll join you in that fight.
Oh, Urchik is honored.
Already the Astral Ward.
I'll let Mabon know that we're moving.
Anything come from that distress call, Dagda?
Did you hear about Alm?
No. What happened?
Taken over by one of the beasts. Stuck a knife into his thigh during supper. Got there before he could cut anyone's throat.
Almost did, though. They had him cornered for an hour before we got there.
I took him to the Beacon of Ages. He'll stay behind a locked door until we know if he's going to be a problem.
Probably for the best, so long as he can't hurt himself.
And that's why we need to be careful.
Yeah. Jeez.
Commander, we could use your expertise on the front line. Lear and I will be waiting for you.
Alright. Richik, I have a med event to get to. You got anything to talk about?
I've never met a Skrit as...
Brainy as Urchik. Neither has Skrit. When Urchik was smaller, Skrit was caught in an Asuran trap. Bright, sparkling. They did some experiments, and suddenly, Skrit knew a bunch of synonyms for shiny. Urchik couldn't scamper with the others like before, so Skrit looked for a new home. Right here, with Blade.
Okay. Oh, so there we get an explanation for why Richik is so smart. I had not noticed that before on any, which we're getting to the point now where I've only made it this far on my main account. I haven't completed the story yet on the other accounts that I'm currently working on. So there we go. A little bit more about Richik. Let's see if we can catch this med event in time. Yeah, we can. They're still doing the thingy thing down there, which I have yet to fully understand how this event even works, but we'll jump down there and join them. Oh, no, we can't. There's still more to go. Rats. What a buzzkill. Alright, let's get to Drachnar's Light then. Oh, is this oh, this is a whole instance, isn't it? No. Alright, well. That's how it goes sometimes. I completely forgotten about that.
My stein is too dry. I can't feel anything at all. The last glimpse was of Kryptis. A whole horde of them.
We'll continue to hope for the best until circumstances point otherwise.
Got like a random deer hanging out with us. So Lear's whole thing is that he can literally split himself, not just his consciousness, but like physically apparently split himself into two entities. So when he's talking about like the last glimpse was of Kryptis and like all this, he's talking about his perception from the other half.
Heard that you've been a great help in sealing the rifts.
I do what I can.
To understand why you kept this a secret for so long.
And there is more to come.
We were just discussing the path forward, Dagda.
The tower is confused. It doesn't know what's happening.
It's sentient?
The magic that flows within has demonstrated some level of awareness. It reacts to danger.
I always imagined it as an extension of Isgarin himself.
The tower calls to all of us, but it prefers Isgarin's voice in response. In his absence, it doesn't know what to do.
Which is where we come in. Now, there are a few ways we can calm our feisty lump of bricks.
And I assume none of them are easy. So what's the plan?
Lear and I will push toward the fractal of Drachnar's forge.
You can either assist us, or you can help collect essences.
Distilled magic and emotion. It's potent among the fractals.
We're collecting emotion, essentially. We did something like that in Kantha. There was a demon in Cholmu's mine, gang leader. Was that a Kryptis?
Correct. And your demon was likely a wanderer. Demons who do not affiliate with Eparch's little society. Kryptis or not, demons are drawn to emotion, like risen are drawn to blood.
Then this place must be a banquet.
Morbid, but yes. We'll need to calm things down here before we can approach the tower. I trust you'll choose the right direction.
Alright. I think that probably could have been accomplished in the open world, but we get an instance there where they give us the choice. It put us on a different map. Well, that's a bummer. Alright, so we missed a little bit of dialogue there too, because I was kind of hoping that we were going to catch the meta event, but we are not going to catch the meta event. Alright, cool. So what we missed was Patha saying scurrying, like prey waiting to be killed, and then a strange voice saying good. Alright. Yeah, see? People hanging out, but no meta event. So here's what we're going to do for today. We're going to call it right here. And
Time to do some real
tomorrow, when we pick it up, we will pick it up with the meta event. Because we have the choice, right? Assist Mabon and Lear in crafting a key to unlock the tower. That is the meta. Or essence gathered from hunts and events across the island. It actually requires quite a lot of them to fill this green bar, and I just don't want to do that. So, let's wrap it up right here. Oh, interesting note before we do so. Wow, that's not a good background for that. That's like we're all like this background like makes us look funny. Interesting note before we close it out though. So the whole Gayala Delves thing is now tied to this story, not with Kryptis, because that demon was not a Kryptis. It was a demon that chose not to be Kryptis and instead remained just a demon. I wish they hadn't linked the two at all. Now, admittedly, they barely linked them, and yet they chose to do that. So they just, like it was an unnecessary thing. Maybe they were afraid that if they hadn't linked all that together, then players would be, like, asking the question, like, oh, but what about this demon? Is it the same as this? And some would feel like it wasn't an addressed thing. I feel like headcanon would have been appropriate to fill that gap, and I think that would have been okay. They chose to tie it. That's fine. So what did we learn? The demon, the Wanderer, in Gayala Delves, was a demon similar to the ones we are encountering here, but had made a choice not to be Kryptis and instead remain independent. So, kind of an interesting thing. I don't find it to be like particularly valuable to the story, and I don't necessarily like them going back and feeling the obligation to explain previous content in the context of current content. And in this case, I don't think it was necessary. But that's what they did. All right. So today we rescued Dagda from her possession, and we want to do the same for Lear, or rather for one half of Lear, because Lear saved himself from total possession by splitting himself in half. Only half of him is possessed, but it's important we get to that half. However, that half is holed up in the Wizard's Tower, which we cannot access without a key, because the tower is relatively sentient, apparently, or at least, maybe it's just sentient, it's not sentient, but it has like some sort of reflex, like a plant, like a Venus flytrap. Anyway, it's closed itself off to us, and we can't access it, even though Lear is inside there, and Lear is part of the problem. So we need to forge a key, which is going to take place in the meta event. So next time when we come back, we're going to pursue the process of forging that key, so that we can then rescue Lear and work towards, preserving the Wizard's Court, bringing the Wizard's Court back together, and hopefully defeating the Kryptis. So thank you very much for hanging out with me this afternoon. I'm glad we get to continue advancing the story. And of course, once we're caught up on the Sato story, then we're going to pick up again with kind of a second installment of 0 to 0. So thank you very much. Got that to look forward to, and I hope you have a good evening.